Well, good evening and welcome back to the Borough Group Stadium for the O Show Added Time, and we're here today to discuss today's game against Crawley Town. But first, we looked slightly away from the football as the O's were really saddened to hear the passing of Dave Knight, member of Leyton Orient Fans Trust and ex-editor of the Leyton Orient here. Pass all our condolences to Dave's family and friends. Now, Mike, he was such an influential fan, especially at the time of what was happening in the last 5 years with the takeover. It's such sad news to come out just before the game today, wasn't it?
Yeah, massively sad. I mean, I knew him for a fair little while, mainly from the local pub, if I'm honest. But he was always nice to me. He done a lot of work for the trust, and it's really sad news. Walking football as well. It's really sad to get this devastating news today. Yeah,
Jim, obviously being ex-editor of the Orienteer as well yourself, you must have known Dave well. It's such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, Dave was one of the first fans I met at Orient. I was editor for 4 years. He was always helpful to me. Wrote articles while I was editor. And yeah, it's just very sad.
So sad. Like as I said, like to pass all our condolences on to Dave's family and friends, and rest in peace, Dave. Now we look kind of. Got to look towards the football a little bit. There was a game of football. Crawley came to town. Now it started off pretty brightly. Mike. You know, I thought the O's were looking quite well. We switched from our 5-3-2 formation. Yeah. The O's went to 4 at the back. A lot of fans have been calling out for that. Do you think that was the right move?
Well, I mean, judging after Tuesday night, I think many people expected for Ross to go to 4 at the back and continue with the 4-3-3, which got us the result away at Mansfield, which was a fantastic result. Let's not beat about the bush. 2-0 down, Dennis coming on, fantastic. Everyone played their part. But today, kept with it today, and I'll tell you what, we created a lot of chances today, fair few chances, and we looked good for a long period of that game. So unfortunately, we just didn't get the result, which I thought possibly a lot of our play deserved.
It did. It felt as though it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, especially having that ex-Orient player Ollie Palmer coming off the bench to turn the result on its head. But let's look at our goals first of all, Karen. Yeah. The opener was a bit of a screamer.
It was a nice one there from Josh Wright, wasn't it? It was in front of the North as well, which we're not used to. So it was a good goal. We took it well. He fell to his feet and. It's nice to see a midfielder attacking. So,
Isn't it? 2 goals for Josh now as well.
It was good to see his composure there because he went to hit it once or twice and stopped and dropped his shoulder a couple of times and just levelled it. Keeper had no chance. It's fantastic finish. Fantastic finish.
And of course it was Leon Goal who got his second for the club as well after scoring on Tuesday. In a loss, Jim, but it's always good for your strikers to score, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We've signed these 2 strikers. They've got big boots to fill, and we need them scoring goals. And it's good to see Angol obviously got his first on Tuesday, and he took the penalty well today.
I was going to say, and it may be a penalty, but it's still a goal. And then goals are going to have confidence, and then there's hopefully going to be competition with him and Conor Wilkinson, so that then it'll be hopefully a case of 2-2. They'll have a competition between themselves, So it's 2-1 at the moment to Angol, isn't it? So
let's take a look back at kind of the defence though, Karen. The strikers have had a decent day today, but let's look back at that defence. We switched to the 4-4-2 as we've already spoken about. How do you think that affected the O's defensively today? We conceded.
I was there on Tuesday at Mansfield, and they came out the second half, and like you say, it was 4-3-3 second half, and they were brilliant. And thankfully, when you carried that forward today, okay, it didn't, it was working to start with. But then I honestly think that the injury to Sam Lynn was massive to today's game because he's been brilliant for the first few league games that we've had. I just feel for him really, and I think that because Sam came off and then Judd came on, and then there was a slight change of the shape there, and it was just like okay, but Ross knows best.
I'm glad you touched on Sam Lynn there, because that was one player that Ross singled out for a bit of praise in his post-match interview. Let's have a look at some of the snippets from Ross's post-match interview and see his thoughts after the game.
Well, Ross, thanks for joining us. The new formation seemed to give plenty of attacking options, but were there problems at the back as a result?
There were problems at the back, not because of the formation. There were problems at the back today because I didn't think we defended our box well enough. And I don't think it depends if you have a back five, a back three, a back four. Individually, sometimes you have to make decisions and defend appropriately, and I don't think we did that today. So I think the fact that there was the formation didn't have a true great reflection on the goals that we let in. It was poor moments in the game from us that allowed Crawley to get 3 goals.
After the penalties conceded on Tuesday night, were players a bit wary about making tackles in the penalty area?
I don't know. I'd have to ask them that. I don't think so. Well, I'd like to think not. Sometimes it's about just being a bit more aggressive and forcing someone wide if you can't sort of put your foot through it and clear it. So I don't think it's necessarily off the back of the penalties, because the scenarios that the penalties were won in on Tuesday night were very different to the manner in which we conceded the goals today. So just very disappointed that we've dominated a game as such, but given 3 goals away.
And that disappointment all the more because it was such a bright start.
Yeah, I thought it was a bright start. I thought there was bright moments in both halves, albeit we probably never really hit our heights in the second half. We still created a numerous amount of opportunities, a good strikes at goal. I thought we was a little bit more sort of positive around the box, which led to obviously a particular goal by Josh Wright today. So I don't think that was particularly our problem, if I'm honest. When you score 2 goals at home, you shouldn't be losing a game of football like that.
Sam Ling's had an excellent start to the season. Was it a significant injury?
Real severe whack on the nose, hoping it's not broken, Dave. And I think to pick up on that point, Sam Ling has been outstanding this season. He got some unfair criticism last year after being a player that put his neck on the line for the club, put his body on the line for the club, because he suffered with numerous amounts of injuries last year, and when called upon played with injuries, and I don't think he gets enough credit. I think sometimes that's probably because of who his dad is. Why that credit doesn't go to him just because his dad works at the football club, I think he's totally unfair. I was made aware this morning of some real strong criticism that was made of him last night by a particular ex-player at this football club, and I think the one thing we have to be careful of is we talked about learning from mistakes, and I haven't seen Sam Ling make particularly many this year. So I'm glad you mentioned him, because I think he's been outstanding. He's come back in great physical shape, which we asked him to do at the end of last season, and I think his performances have been good. So I think we just need to be careful sometimes of how critical we can be of players.
Clearly a very disappointed Ross there after that 3-2 defeat to Crawley, and wishing Sam Ling the best of luck with his nose. Hope it doesn't ruin your boyish good looks. But Jimbo, Ross was very defensive there of his young right back, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I can understand. I saw some of the criticism that Ling got last season, but I don't think that would be justified this year. The games I've seen, he's played really well.
I thought if he's been asked to come back, stronger and fitter, he's definitely done that, hasn't he? So you can't knock him for doing what he's been told to do. He's
put in arguably good, well, certainly 2 home man in the match performances,
He's been one of the best players on that park for a few weeks now. Okay, Macclesfield, nobody particularly played well against Macclesfield, but against Cheltenham he had a very, very solid game. Stevenage played very well, and then away at Mansfield, he was a big part in our first goal, which eventually got us the 3-2 win. And he was pretty solid today until, unfortunately, he had to go through injury.
Like I say, I think it was a game changer today, to be honest. So,
well, let's get well. Let's flip over to the other side of the pitch, though, that left back position. Joe Widdowson found himself out with an injured rib from Tuesday night's win. But someone else who's been performing pretty consistently this season is James Brophy. I feel as though he did a job at left back, but do you almost feel, Karen, is that we lack that going forward?
I was going to say, when Brophy comes back, then who have you got going forward? Because it seems to be Brophy and Dennis, between them, seem to be the sort of 2 creative people at the front to sort of try and put the ball in the middle to people. But then when you have to take one of them out of that equation, then that leaves the other one exposed. So it's like, well, how do you play it? And it's just a tricky thing to have to do. But yeah,
you feel as though Joe Widdowson, when he comes back into that left back, that will free Bros to push forward, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to persevere with a 4 at the back, Joe Widdowson's your obvious choice at left back, and James Brophy was asked to do the job today. I think Crawley probably saw that we didn't have our first choice left back playing, and did target us down that area.
Let's look at the O's defensively, especially for that kind of final 20 minutes where it's kind of completely contrasting to Tuesday night's game where we just gave everything to the final whistle. Do you think it almost Tuesday night maybe took it out of the boys a little bit, having that northern trip and then coming into today and trying to play against what looked like a decent Crawley side?
Possibly. I mean, it was such a big result on Tuesday, wasn't it? At half time, I think most fans, if they're honest, didn't see us coming back to that, but it was a huge result. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to say. It's hard to say.
You got to take the highs and the lows, haven't you, Mike?
Cool.
You have these comebacks of a Tuesday night, and then the disappointment.
Well, if I could just say that, when I was talking to some Crawley fans in the supporters club before the game, and they were saying that where they played on their game that they had on Tuesday night, they were literally knocking on the door for the last 10-15 minutes constantly, but nothing was happening. And it just happened to be that today the door was open for them in one of them, but they were knocking on the door and the door went ajar, whereas it just obviously didn't do it on Tuesday when they played at Crew, I think it was it, or someone?
Well, we do thankfully have a chance to put it right next Saturday, but the chance comes against a bit of an old enemy, Mike. Well, supposing if you talk about recent history, so we've got to go to Salford, a team that so many fans will remember from last season. But we won the league. But it's going to be a tough one again on Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. They've spent well again this window. They're one of the favourites to go up this season. But I honestly think if we can stamp out the defensive mistakes, we've proven we can create chances and score goals now. 5 goals in 2 games. Nothing to be sneezed at. So prove we can score goals. If we can just stamp out 1 or 2 defensive mistakes, I think we take a point there again, away from home. Always take it.
Remember as well is we're the only team in this division that's ever played Salford before, so we know what we're coming up against. Whereas all the other teams are sort of going into it blind. We know what we're doing, hopefully. So fingers crossed.
and Jim, just lastly, how would you say this first part of the season's gone? Especially, it's been a bit up and down, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of been as I expected it, to be honest. I mean, we know what happened over the summer, moving into a new division. It was difficult to know exactly what to expect, and that I think that inconsistent start is probably it's kind of what we expected, really.
It maybe hasn't. It's not 4 points on the
7
board.
points from 4 games, I believe.
Okay.
To me, that's a really good start.
At
Especially
one
what
stage
we've
today-
all been, what the club's been through,
Yeah, at one stage
in
today
the
we
summer.
were second in the league when we were ahead. So it's it goes to show how tight it is, though, that you just lose 1 goal and then you drop so many places. So why are people worrying about it? It's only August still. Come on,
Well, it is August, and we'll see how September goes. All right, that's all we've got time for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming up to join me. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
And Mike, it's been a pleasure as always.
Absolute pleasure, my man. Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure. And don't forget, we'll be back here on Saturday, the 7th of September, when we take on Swindon Town, and we'll bring you another episode of the O Show. Added time. Up the O's.